Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's telephone town hall with Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. My name is Robin, and I'll be moderating the call this evening. During tonight's call, we'll be taking questions from constituents like you. If you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad now. You may also sign up for our e-newsletter by pressing *6 at any time during the call. Again, if you'd like to ask the Congresswoman a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad now or at any time during the call. If you'd like to subscribe to our e-newsletter, press *6. Without further delay, I'd like to turn the call over to Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. Congresswoman, you are live and the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Robin. I thank you for overseeing tonight's telephone town hall, and I thank everybody who has gotten on this call. Good evening. I'm Madeleine Dean. I am the Congresswoman for the 4th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, which my constituents know as Montgomery and Berks County. Again, I sincerely thank you for tuning in tonight. I see we have quite a few folks on the line, and others will join us through the hour. Please continue to join us. It means a lot to me. I want to tell you my motivation for asking for this town hall tonight. My hope is, number one, to listen to you, my constituents, and to answer your questions about these last couple of weeks that have been so chaotic, confusing to so many of my constituents. You might imagine that my phones here in Washington, D.C. were in session this week, but also in the district, in Glenside and in Pottstown, have been ringing these last 2 weeks with an awful lot of constituents, with an awful lot of questions, and what I am troubled by is how people are so worried. So I'm here to listen to you, to answer your questions, to give you the things that I can give you, and be honest when I don't have the answer, but mostly I want to hear from you, and let you know that we are here in D.C., and we are up to this set of fights. Before we begin, Robin, with hearing from our constituents, I wanted to just, number one, acknowledge that our country is in mourning over the 2 plane crashes, the one here in Washington, D.C., that took 69 lives, so many with connections to our region, to our district, the ice skating folks, the children, the families, the coaches, the military members, the pilots, the crew, so many lives taken in that horrific accident, that horrific crash. And then just after that, the crash of the medical ambulance airline plane coming out of Northeast Philadelphia and crashing right at Cottman Avenue, Roosevelt Boulevard, Roosevelt Mall, Brendan Boyle's district. My heart breaks for all of these families. We in America, we grieve along with them, and we must do everything we can. So I just wanted to acknowledge the D.C. and Philadelphia tragedies and know that I'm working on it. But to get back to, I think, some of the issues that are on your minds, but I'll learn better from you. This has been such a trialing time, a troubling time. My team and I have heard from literally hundreds and hundreds of you over the last 16 or more days, rightfully concerned about the Trump administration, the new administration's slew of overreaching, sometimes blatantly illegal executive actions, orders, memoranda. At this count, and it's ongoing every single day, there are more than 100 executive actions taken by this administration that are very confusing. And some of them, as I said, are just plain illegal, and others are just plain hurtful. You've seen that Elon Musk has been empowered. They have gutted USAID. They are trying to buy out, really push out civil servants. They're threatening the Department of Education. I will be at a rally tomorrow morning in front of the Department of Education. The list goes on and on. We've heard your fears. My team is answering your calls. You're worried for your jobs. You're worried for your families, your children, their schools, their education, your veterans, health care, you name it. And I have to admit to you folks, the biggest question I have heard over and over again is, what are you doing about it, Mad? What are Democrats doing? What is Congress doing? And so I just wanted to give you a framework for how I am tackling it and how my Democratic caucus is tackling it. We have three pathways. One is robust litigation, which you are seeing every single day, and I'll give you some of that in just a second. Number two, through legislation. And legislation is not just passing laws and resolutions, it is also the power of oversight. And number three, this is where you come in, mobilization. You are mobilized. I am so proud of my constituents, of the folks who are at these rallies. Yesterday I attended 3 different rallies. People are here. They are demanding that their voice be heard for sanity and for our government's control over what is going on. Quickly, on the litigation front, I wanted to let you know there are really terrific groups of lawyers who have been at work literally all last year, anticipating that we might be in this place, that Donald Trump might be duly elected to return to the White House, as he has been, that Republicans might be in control of the Senate and the House, as they are. And so what does that do to the policies that we don't agree with, that we find that are an overreach by this administration? So, for example, I met today with a group, a nonprofit group, Democracy Forward. They've put into action preparations they've been working on, as I say, for over a year, to put together the legal challenges quickly against these unlawful and undemocratic actions by this administration and by Elon Musk. Here are just a couple of highlights. They filed on behalf of doctors so that doctors could be allowed to intervene to defend bedrock healthcare privacy regulations. Minutes after Mr. Trump was inaugurated, they filed a legal challenge to ensure that DOJ complies with Federal Advisory Committee law. That is the Department of so-called government efficiency. Following the release of a funding freeze memo that you all saw, a chaotic memo issued by the administration the beginning of last week, they worked overnight and went into court in fewer than 24 hours to secure a stop to the federal funding freeze. They challenged Donald Trump's Schedule F executive order and other actions aimed to unlawfully weaken our civil service. They're representing faith communities in challenges to block ICE from entering houses of worship. They sued to block the anti-DEI orders as a violation of free speech. And I'll give you just one more. They're engaging with, two more. They're engaging with partners to address issues such as foreign aid. And today, they secured a delay in the so-called Fork in the Road initiative, allegedly claiming they are going to buy out federal workers. There's a delay in that because of the unclarity of it and the unconstitutionality of it. So also they're working on preventing Elon Musk and his team of young folks from getting in and accessing critical labor, USAID, Social Security, Medicaid, other sensitive pieces of information that you and I all own and they should not have access to. Second, so that's legislation, and that's just some of what's going on. So all of these actions are being met in court after court after court, and many responsible judges, federal, whether they're Republican appointed or Democratically appointed, are recognizing the lawlessness of much of this. Second, on the legislative front, please know that our colleagues in Congress are fully engaged, and we are leveraging the powers of our branch to introduce, for example, new legislation, Taxpayer Data Protection Act. Imagine that we would have to do that in the face of an administration, a presidential administration, but we're doing it. We're introducing the Department of Education Protection Act. Again, it's outrageous that as public servants we would have to fight to protect our Department of Education, but we do have to do that, and we will. We're working against the illegal freezing of funding. My colleague Jamie Raskin is leading our oversight efforts in Judiciary Committee to fight back, demand answers, and ensure that Americans receive transparency they deserve on Trump's numerous illegal executive actions, such as, for example, his memorandum executive order attempting to end birthright citizenship. Obviously, grotesquely unconstitutional. My neighbor, Congressman Brendan Boyle, we use the budget process. He is ranking member of our budget committee to take on Republicans at committee hearings. That's just a start. So I don't want you to worry that in any way we are not engaged. We are fully engaged. We are up to this fight. And I ask you, part 3, mobilization. Please stay engaged and mobilized. I am certain and confident, and we know it from reporting, the White House backed off the federal government freeze, not just because of statements members of Congress like I made, but because of all of you. You spoke up. You said this is outrageous. These funds must flow as appropriated by Congress, and they had to back off. So let me, before I toss it to you, Robin, say just this. I want to be clear with everybody on this line. What we are seeing is not normal. It is okay. It is understandable to have a lot of questions, to be worried or fearful. But I ask you to keep reaching out to me, reaching out to your neighbors, to say we are all in this together. It only serves this administration if we all are so confused and so much feeling the chaos and so much worried and fearful that we stop engaging. In order for us to protect our rights, our constitutional order, the rule of law, to stand up for us, American everyday citizens, we have to stay engaged. We have to listen to one another and recognize that these illegal actions will not prevail. I'm confident of that. So again, I thank you. Robin, I am tossing it back to you. Let's get started with hearing from my constituents.
Yes, ma'am. Once again, folks, please remember to press *3 on your telephone keypad if you'd like to ask a question. Our first caller is Robert from Green Lane. Robert, you are live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Robert,
Yes,
I can hear you. Thanks for calling.
Well, thank you. My question was going to be about Elon Musk's hostile takeover of the Treasury, but you've done it, and what you were going to do about it, but you've done a good job of answering that. So let me dig down to one particular part of it. From where I'm standing, Democrats are in the opposition. You're in the minority, so your powers are limited. But you're in the opposition, so your job is to oppose and to use every power available to you. One that you haven't talked about, and I think where you're strongest, is the upcoming budget negotiations. How will you use that and learning from Mitch McConnell to put a stop to some of what's going on? Thank you.
Well, Robert from Green Lane, I thank you for that question. And just to put a little finer point on the Elon Musk point and then your question about budget, which is so important. As I said at the end of that last comment, this is not normal. President Trump has given Elon Musk unvetted, an unelected billionaire, unbridled access to our most sensitive information, our data, Treasury. It's outrageous. You are all calling me to say that, and I share that. It's wrong. It's unlawful. And it's a flagrant breach of our privacy, and it's a breach of the law. We have a right to the protection of these things. He is going into different agencies to break them, to break our confidence in them, to disband them, to reduce our federal workforce, to reduce workforce across so many different areas, all to destroy faith in institutions and actually to destroy these institutions like the Department of Education. Remember, this is for their own purposes. Please watch the money. Follow the money on this stuff. Because since the election, Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire, has gained more than 160 billion, billion with a B, in his own net worth. So this is all about the grift as well as the power. And so to your point around where can we lean in? What can we do because we are in the minority? Good news is we're only slimly in the minority, as you know, Robert. 3 votes separate us from the majority at this time. At some point, it could get down to 2. At some point, it might flip. Democrats might wind up with the majority. But you're right, we are the ones who have to be the ones in the minority on the budget negotiations that are ongoing now. I am delighted to tell you all that just this Congress, I have been appointed to the Appropriations Committee. We just met today to talk about the very question you said. What can we do in the minority to block the things that they will try to do? For example, they will try to tear down Medicaid. A high percentage of our children in America access Medicaid for their well-being, for their families. The Republicans will try to reduce Medicaid or try to shut it down. We can, I think we will be able to effectively block it because they're going to need some of our support because the majority is so slim. So there are many things we will do through Brendan Boyle's Budget Committee and Rosa DeLauro's Appropriations Committee through Ways and Means as we face this budget cliff of March 14th. Please, God, don't let the Republican majority shut this government down, only creating more harm. But we will use our positions in budget and appropriations with strength.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next question comes from Barbara from Willow Grove. Barbara, you're live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question. Barbara, you're live on the call. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I will tell you quite honestly, I don't like Donald Trump, but there are some things that he's doing that I do approve of. But my question, it really has to do with USAID. I've been reading a lot about it, and I've heard about expenses that we've been using taxpayer money for promoting atheism in Nepal, LGBTQ comic books in Peru, LGBTQ musicals and operas. I got to tell you, I'm outraged that taxpayer money be spent in this manner. Can you tell me something about the process? Who approves these expenses? Where's the oversight and accountability?
Barbara, thank you for your question. I think Barbara's from Willow Grove. Thank you for your question. And I want to say that I'm hopeful that there are people on this line, my constituents, who did support Donald Trump, who do support some of the things that he promised us. Remember what he said when he ran and got elected. He would make us safer. He would make things cheaper. But everything you are seeing Mr. Trump do is making us less safe and is making things more expensive. So I question that. Let's hold this elected official to account for exactly what he ran on. To your question, and they're making some real hay around USAID and some fringe program. I don't know the truth of the very programs you just described, but let me tell you what I do know about USAID. I have been with USAID in different places of extraordinary need around the globe. America is an extraordinary leader, helping people in war zones, in conflict, in places of great poverty, of famine, helping children get food, education, health care, vaccinations. You think about what they are doing. USAID is made up of, how many employees did we say? 10,000? 10,000. And what we have just read in the New York Times, if this reporting is accurate, they want to reduce USAID to 290 positions. USAID isn't just in it for the humanitarian work. It is also powerfully important on something we call soft power, which is to keep us safer around the world. By having people suffer all of these ills with no support from others, leaves them victim to greater terrorism, which means we are victim of greater terrorism. So the programs you asked about, and you're absolutely right, they are subject to oversight, and they should be. And so those programs should be vetted. But the way to vet them is not to shut down USAID. Telling families around the globe, return in the next 30 days. Some have been told to return. These are people with children doing God's work. and some of them have been told to return in 3 to 5 days. So you're right, oversight is appropriate. Destroying the institution is not. And I want to tell you where I worked with USAID. USAID works directly with World Food Program and Cindy McCain. I had the chance to be with Mrs. McCain, the late senator's wife, who runs the World Food Program and works hand in hand with USAID. I can't say enough about the folks who do the work of the World Food Program, USAID, and this destruction of the institution that is congressionally made is just plain wrong.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next caller is Stephen from Montgomery County. Stephen, you are live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, thank you, Congresswoman. Other people asked a question about both Trump and Musk. Again, besides like working on negotiation, is there anything we can do at the local, state level? Is there anything else we all can do? Supposedly, even though the Trump is Republican, he's supposed to represent all Americans, not just the rich people or the people that voted for him or the foreign dictators that he seems to support. I don't know what we can do. Again, they're very good at messaging. I'm watching on, say, public television. The Republicans are all in lockstep saying that everything that Biden did was bad, everything Trump is doing is good, and there might be one or two things Trump is doing that is good. But my point is that in general and overall, things are really, really bad. As one example, they apparently got my Social Security information. I don't see why they can't just break the locks off on the doors to these buildings to keep Musk from getting in quicker, if that's what's necessary to do. I'm saying that it's nice to go to the courts, but that we might not have that much time or really that need for it. I don't know if there's anything you say we can find 3 Republicans in Congress that are willing to work with us, and that would flip things around where we could actually start directing the content things without having to wait 2 years for what's happening. So if you have any other further suggestions or ideas, I do support everything you're doing. And again, if there's something Trump is doing that makes sense, I would support that. But it seems like 99.9% of what he's doing is either ridiculous or harmful or subversive. Thank you.
Stephen, I thank you for those thoughts, and I agree with you. I keep hoping over the course of this incredible turbulence in our democracy that we will shake free 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Republicans. I want them to join me to say, no, Congress has the power of the purse. Elon Musk does not. Elon Musk should not have your Social Security number, any data about you, your family, my family, anybody on this list. And so we're going to keep fighting this. The one lawsuit that we were talking about was successful in keeping Musk out of the Department of Labor. This was just yesterday. They wanted to come in with his minions and access the Department of Labor files. And the one lawsuit kept them out. Said that, to your point about locks on the doors, they literally said that they could not access the building for the purposes that they wanted. So please, to your original question, what can you do? Keep doing what you're doing, and feel free to reach out to me. But you know I share your values. I want others who want to talk to my Republican colleagues who, for whatever reason, are silent in the face of the outrages and the excesses of this administration and of Mr. Musk. Please encourage your friends of any political persuasion, no political persuasion, to reach out to all elected officials, Republicans and Democrats.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next caller is Barb from Dresner. Barb, you are live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, Congresswoman. I have a question even more basic. Why is it the Republican Party members are so scared to stand up and say enough? That's it. I mean, I just don't understand that.
Barb, that is I don't think this is even the right number. It's the $10 billion question. Barb, I literally, and hello from Drescher, I literally talk to Republican colleagues on the floor or out separate from this building. And And I see them rolling their eyes at Donald Trump. Some of them are in lockstep with him, and that is they've drunk the Kool-Aid. But some of them roll their eyes privately and remain silent. And I've literally asked them, why do you do that? What does he have over you? And they say, some of them say, I want to be able to keep this job. I will get a primary. And Donald Trump will fund that primary and take me out and put in somebody else loyal, showing fealty to Donald Trump. So it is a clinging to power. And I've literally said, how can that be worth it, Mr. Republican? I won't name names. I said, how can that be worth it to you? How do you vote against your own conscience, against your own set of values? And they said, because I get to stay here. Elections matter. We have to not reward people who are in it for the power, for the job, and who won't use their own backbone. Thank you, Barb. I wish I had a better answer for you. I don't.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I just want to remind our callers, please, if you have a question, press *3 on your telephone keypad. And if you're enjoying this update, I encourage you to press *6 on your keypad now to subscribe to the Congresswoman's e-newsletter. Congresswoman, our next question was submitted online from Tom from Collegeville, and Tom says, Trump said Americans won't be the one to pay for the tariffs. Is that true?
Hello from Tom from Collegeville. How are you? No, it isn't true. I've found, Tom, that my job over the last 6 years, now going into my 7th year, is to be responsible to tell my constituents the truth. And sadly, we know that Mr. Trump varies from the truth very, very often for his own gain and purposes. What tariffs are taxes on you and me. They're price hikes. So that when was it only this week? The days are really blending together here. Donald Trump, I guess it was over the weekend, imposed a 25% tax on Canada and a 25% tax on Mexico, our closest neighbors and two of our strongest trading partners, and he put it on in a single day. You saw what happened. People revolted. Of course, the countries themselves said, how can we even count on you, America, when you're doing that to us, when you import so much of our food, our fruits, our gas, our eggs, our lumber, and so much more. Donald Trump has tried to pretend to say that 25% is going to be levied against Canada, is going to be levied against Mexico, but that's not true. It's levied when the stuff comes to the border and comes across. And you get your bill of lading, and whoever's buying it has to pay that increased 25%. So the lumber company who buys the lumber from Canada will have a bill that will be 25% higher on receipt of goods. What are they going to do? They're going to pass it on to you and me so that we buy that lumber to do a renovation at our house. The price is going to be 25% or more higher. Tariffs are taxes, they are price hikes for you and me. Let's not be fooled by this. And you saw what happened. That collapsed, so there's now a 30-day pause on both of those sets of tariffs. But the underlying harm is so great. What it does to our standing, our global standing. Can you rely upon us? Can families rely upon what goods are going to cost? As I said at the beginning, this administration came in on two things. I'm going to make your life cheaper, your cost of living cheaper, and I'm going to make you safer. None of this is working toward those two goals.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next caller is Joe from Abington. Joe, you're live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Matt. How you doing?
Hi, Joe.
Hey, I first want to just start out by thanking you for having our back, with stuff like PFAS. Thomas Paine said, these are the times that try men's souls, back when our nation was being formed. And it just seems so applicable now because there are people like you that are speaking out for us on our behalf, and then there's other people that are hiding. And I'm a little bit concerned about AG Bondi having been confirmed, with the tie break by the vice president. It came to my attention that our Senator Fetterman had voted for confirmation. And I understand that we don't want any infighting, but at the same time, it seems like the Republicans always vote lock and step, and the Democrats seem to think that things are going to go civilly and play by the rules and all that. My question is with this is that, already AG Bondi is talking about, launching a weaponization working group to review officials who investigated the president, to try to hold him accountable. And I'm just wondering how Senator Fetterman could have voted for someone that was a known election denier and just clearly is not looking at doing what, this is the person that's in charge of law enforcement, for God's sake. So this is really concerning to me, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it without, I'm not asking for any character assassination or anything like that, but at the same time, we have to be a united front in dealing with this insanity.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on this.
Thank you, Joe, and hello to Abington. And thanks for your words on PFAS, because we have made such progress with water,
Thanks.
And it's all at risk for the funding that we've gotten, the health studies we've gotten, the prevention stuff that we've gotten, the accountability of companies to clean this stuff up. So thank you for a mention on PFAS. We'll keep at it. I am greatly disappointed that Pam Bondi was confirmed, that all of these picks are being confirmed, some of them grotesquely unqualified. I don't know that Pam Bondi is among them, but what troubles me is the very thing you brought up. When she went before the Senate for her confirmation hearing, my, oh my, she didn't seem at all like she was interested in any kind of special investigation of those who investigated Donald Trump. In fact, she protested that wasn't something she was interested in. And then as you report, and as I think this is an article I'm looking at from February 5th, she has launched a weaponization working group to review officials who investigated Trump. I'm somebody who served on the impeachment committee. This was impeachment 2. I'm sure I'm on a couple of lists with our president. I don't worry about being investigated. I know that I was doing my job. I was doing my job for our country. But it's incredibly troubling that the Senate confirmed. I can't comment, Joe, though I will talk to him privately. I can't comment on Senator Fetterman's vote. I'm puzzled by it, as you are, because I do think there is power in Democrats just simply being united to say, no, you can't put up one unqualified candidate appointee after another. You think of Mr. Hegseth. You think of Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. So I, like you, want Democrats united in that front. And, of course, I would really like much more to have some Republican senators stand up and say, no, this is beyond the pale, but we're not seeing it. I'll end with this. Since you brought up Thomas Paine, you're right. These are the times that try men's souls. But I'm going to tell you what Jamie Raskin quotes so often, and I say this to all of you on this line. Thomas Paine is also known for saying, the times have found us. So just to all of you here, the times have found us. Stay strong in support of our democracy. I am certain we will prevail. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next caller is Mark from Worcester. Mark, you are live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. Hi, Representative Dean. I think mine's a relatively simple question. With what Musk is doing, why doesn't there just a simple lawsuit to go after the fact that what he has done is not based in law? There's no authorization for this man to do anything. There is no Doge authorization by the Congress. So,
you're right. I would like direct lawsuits against Mr. Musk. So I'm with you, Mark.
and I
Go ahead. Did I lose him? I am with you. Why aren't there just lawsuits stopping Musk in general, individually? The problem is the president does have the right to hire folks to do different jobs. To your point, DOJ is an empty agency. We took a look at the website, and I'm looking at my counterpart across the table here to say, is it still true that the DOJ website is just a black screen with a simple sentence on it? You're right. There's nothing to it. There's nothing legit there. They have not been established by Congress. They're not set up appropriately. So I do have a confidence, and I'm not part of the litigation strategy, but I do have a confidence that all of these lawsuits are including Elon Musk when we're protecting against his access to Treasury, to labor. State AGs are on this as well. I have to admit it is mostly Democratic state AGs. I wish it would be Republican and Democratic state AGs. And I talked to our own governor today. He is working on all of this very keenly. So you're right, I'm with you. But the strategy team is doing to call Elon Musk's behaviors into trying to block what he's doing.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next question was submitted by Sharon of Reading. This is an online question, ma'am. She says, I am a high school chemistry teacher. I am terrified that Donald Trump will gut the Department of Education. What will this mean for my students, our schools, and our teachers?
Sharon, number one, thank you. Thank you for being a teacher and a teacher of high school chemistry. So very important. I had the chance to teach for 10 years before I came to public service, before I was a state representative in Pennsylvania for 6 years, and then now in Congress for 6. I taught in the university. I taught where I went to school, LaSalle University. The most important thing that I thought I could do was to help students claim their education, and that's exactly what you are doing. And I think it's a very important part of our civic engagement that we have an educated electorate. Nobody should be surprised by what's going on. Literally, we're going to be outside of the Department of Education tomorrow organizing to protest. Take a look at Project 2025. The very first sentence of the chapter on education is to get rid of the Department of Education. It's for 2 reasons: so that our citizens are not well educated, and also for those who would like to privatize our education system and embed deeper inequities in our education system, but to privatize it for profit. Always watch who's trying to claim money from this destruction. So we are going to fight that because of the very thing you're worried about. What's it going to mean for our students and our schools? I'm a mom to 3 grown sons. The most important thing we wanted for our kids was their health and their education so that they could have a full and fulfilling life. And I now am grandmother to 5 little ones. I am going to do everything in my power to be sure that they and every other Pennsylvanian has the constitutional right, which is in the Pennsylvania Constitution, to their education. So I'll keep fighting, and please stay there for our students. I just thank you. Maybe I could visit you in your classroom someday.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next caller is Paul from Hatboro. Paul, you are live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Congresswoman. Thank you for hosting the town hall. So I guess my question is, obviously you mentioned in the beginning of the call the laundry list of, executive orders from Trump the minute he took office. One of the ones I find most troubling is kind of the freeze of information from the FDA and the CDC. The organizations, the government organizations responsible for getting, health risks out to Americans. I mean, especially with, how poorly Trump handled COVID. we see that it's a major problem. I wanted to know what Congress is doing to get these organizations back up and running and the flow of information, especially since we're dealing with the bird flu right now still. But, there's no information coming from the CDC, no updates, anything like that. And if I could, I wanted to also add one more thing. The third term that's being thrown out there. I know there's a vote on the House floor right now about, allowing Trump to run again and adding an amendment to the Constitution. If you could talk a little bit about that as well, I'd appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate all of that, and I share your concerns about, agencies that are tasked with keeping us safer, whether it's FDA or Food and Drug Administration, CDC, NIH, and all of these are threatened. You've seen, and I've seen reports, and my team has looked, that many of the websites, the federal websites, are being scrubbed, are being altered, are taking down public health information while they decide how they want to put it back and what they think is appropriate, whether it is around HIV or vaccines or other public health issues. That is so corrosive, so harmful, and so at risk to public health. So we are fighting that, and I will continue to support full funding for NIH, CDC, FDA, and the other agencies that are tasked with either, approving new drugs, approving drug trials. Some of my constituents have called me who are involved in research, for example, on upcoming pandemics, on bird flu, and their research has been halted. Their funding for that research is in jeopardy. I'll go back to where I started. This is not normal. This is not for the commonwealth, the common good, the public interest, and our public health. This will make us sicker. This will make us have a more difficult time accessing health care. Just today in our offices, we had the Pennsylvania Association of Community Health Centers. They do terrific work right in our district. Across Pennsylvania, they serve 1 million patients a year. Their funding is in jeopardy. Even though we had that funding freeze and then the quick rescission, they told us their websites where they access the funding that has been appropriated to them, when they click on it to access the next round of funding, it just says forever pending, 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 pending. These are really cynical, corrosive moves by this administration. We'll keep fighting. We'll keep exposing it through our hearings, field hearings, and others. And I share that with you. Third term question, that will require a constitutional amendment. Thank God, to amend the Constitution, you can't do it in a single floor vote. So I predict that will not work. But beware. I didn't think some of these other things would happen either. So thank you for that concern. I share it. Mr. Trump should just enjoy this term and try to do it lawfully.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Folks, it's great to see so many of you on the call this evening, some of you in queue to ask questions. There is another feature in this call this evening. We actually have a poll question for you. Our question is, what are you most concerned about right now? Elon Musk's unlawful government takeover, press 1. Federal funding freeze, press 2. Federal employee layoffs, press 3. Tariffs and cost of everyday goods, press 4. Immigration, press 5. Conflict in Israel and Palestine, press 6. America's standing in the world, press 7. And if there's something other than those that we listed, please press 8. And I will repeat those for you because I know that's a lot to take in. The question is, what are you most concerned about right now? Press 1 if it's Elon Musk's unlawful government takeover. Press 2 if it's federal funding freeze. Press 3 if it's federal employee layoffs. Press 4 for tariffs and cost of everyday goods. Press 5 for immigration. Press 6 for conflict in Israel and Palestine. Press 7 for America's standing in the world. And press 8 if there's something else on your mind. We really, truly appreciate your participation. We've got another caller. Our next caller is Megan. Hang on just a quick sec. Actually, it may not be Megan. We're going to take, hold on, I'm looking for Megan in my list. I see her name here, and now I don't see her. It's a Megan. It's an online question. My apologies.
I hope we didn't lose Megan.
No, you know what? I'm going to go ahead with Amy from Willow Grove. Amy is a caller. Amy, you are live with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. Thank you for hosting this town hall. Listen to our concerns. You discussed a little bit about the cuts regarding Medicaid and a little bit about the dismantling of the Department of Education. But I just want to know a little bit more specifically about the most vulnerable population of children, with those with special needs, and how we're going to protect them as they rely on the federal funding to provide Title I schools and other services and therapies. Leaving the funding to the states or those block grants are going to cut funding, and it's going to be a free-for-all for all these special needs children, leaving little to nothing.
Amy, I thank you very much for the question. I'm gravely concerned about full Medicaid funding, that we make sure that we continue full Medicaid funding because we know it supports so many of our children. As you point out, children with special needs, adults with disability, children with disabilities, our seniors, many of whom are dependent upon Medicaid for in-home care as long as they can stay in their homes and as they want to stay in their homes, but also as they age into nursing homes. Many of our seniors access nursing home care through Medicaid, and they have the right to do that. Unfortunately, and I have to admit to you, Amy, I don't even understand saying these words or wishes. Many of my Republican colleagues and this administration are considering deep cuts to Medicaid. I will never support that. I will work on the Appropriations Committee. I will work with the states and the Department of Education, who supports the very programs you're talking about, to make sure that never happens. What we have seen, as I was a state representative, we saw so many young people with disabilities on waiting lists. And we actually had tiers to the waiting list. Imagine the expression, you're on an emergency waiting list. Well, that's an oxymoron. If it is an emergency situation, get me off the waiting list and get me the help that I need and that I deserve. So I'll keep fighting, whether it is state funded, whether it is federal funded, to make sure that Medicaid is not in any way harmed, if anything, is only enhanced. But again, I'm going to go back to that idea of mobilization. You would never have thought 10 years ago that elected officials would suggest that they're going to do something to trim or cut or harm Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid. Medicaid is definitely on the chopping block this go-round. Please reach out to your elected officials and let them know that is simply unacceptable.
Thank you, Congresswoman. The online question from Megan, Megan's from Pottstown. She says, I have friends who are federal workers and they're scared of the uncertainty. What are you doing to help them?
Yeah. Hi, Megan. Hello, Pottstown. I'm scared. I'm worried for them. Federal workers, you know what? There's only one good thing about all of this, that we're actually focusing on these talented, selfless federal workers. They are doing the work that we all need every single day so that all of the things that government does can be processed. And they're not political appointees. They are civil servants, and they are entitled to protection by law, congressional acts that we have passed. So we're going to hold this administration to account to continue to protect federal employees. But in the meantime, We see what's going on. I just want to point out, in Pennsylvania, for example, we have something like 60,000 federal workers. Thank you, federal workers in Pennsylvania. In our collar counties, more than 8,000 federal workers. And so I want to say I admire the work that you do. I thank you for doing it. We know it is often very, very challenging, and sometimes you aren't rewarded in the same ways you might be rewarded in the public sector, or in the private sector, but you believe in what you're doing. And so I believe in you. I'm going to keep fighting for you. The Democratic caucus, trust me, is fighting for our federal workers, our union workers, our AFSCME workers, you name it. We'll keep fighting for you. The federal worker buyout that you're seeing, that offer, I would ask federal workers to be very circumspect of it because I don't see the legality of it. Congress has not appropriated any money for this so-called buyout. And as I said, in litigation today, there's been a stay on that deadline for you to exercise your right to take the buyout. What I've been saying to people is what I say to seniors. We worry about scams against seniors. And if somebody asks you to make a life decision, a life-changing decision for you, for your family, for your career, and they say you've got 2 weeks to make that decision, yes or no, I would beware. Sounds like a scam to me. And know that Congress has not appropriated the funds for the buyout. I'll keep fighting for federal workers. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We have time for one more caller. We have Phyla from Kutztown. Phyla, you are live on the call with the Congresswoman. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. I'm hoping, Congresswoman Dean, that you can help salvage the climate situation in two ways: protecting lands from the threats of fossil fuel extraction that the Republican majority and the administration are threatening, and also to wipe out the climate programs and policies that we have already.
Phyla, thank you very much. Hello to Kutztown as well. And thank you. I'm so glad you kind of rounded this hour out. There's so much we could talk about, but it is critically important that we remember in this chaos that one of our important jobs, responsibilities that I'm trying to live up to every Congress is to protect our planet. To protect it not just for us, but for my grandchildren and their children and your grandchildren and for generations to come. We do know the harms of the extraction of fossil fuels. We know the harms of the burning of fossil fuels. We know the harms of, for example, the runoff and contamination either of methane or of the slurry fluid from fracking. I'm really proud, Phyla, of what we were able to pass 2 Congresses ago with the Inflation Reduction Act, a kind of funny named bill that had so many good things in it. And I am fearful that this administration will try to destroy the good things in it that are exactly to your point, to protect our planet and to encourage us to use more sustainable energy, renewable energy. So we're going to keep at it and try to protect the investments in the Inflation Reduction Act that are for us and for businesses and for our planet. And I'll go back to, my team's going to laugh at me here, Phyla. I'll go back to the Pennsylvania Constitution. Article 1, Section 27 says, we, the people, have the right to clean air, clean water, and the preservation of our natural aesthetic, not just for us, but for future generations. I believe I have a responsibility there. I think we all have a responsibility as trustees of this beautiful planet and the beautiful 4th Congressional District. So we'll keep fighting, but I'm going to need you along our side to make sure we do that.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Before we end the call this evening, ma'am, I'd love to give you an opportunity to share your final thoughts on this evening's telephone town hall.
My final thoughts are just a sincere thank you. We've had more than 8,000 people on this call tonight. That is so, believe it or not, it gives me such great hope. I thank you for your engagement. Continue to call me with your thoughts. And tell me the stories and how your family is being affected. And I hope you'll give me any suggestions that you have. I hope that on this call, I have folks who voted for me and didn't vote for me, but know that I am here to serve you. You are my constituent. I want to hear from you. I want to serve you. And I want to let you know I'm in this fight, and I will stand up against the chaos, the corruption, the many, sadly, illegal moves of this administration. And my greatest ambition is to reduce the number of people who get hurt. There's so much that we are losing right now, and I'm sure that we will get past this to a better day. But something I'm very upset about is the theft of your peace of mind. We deserve the right as Americans to think positively about our future, our children's future, our careers, what our kids might do, and how they might give back and contribute. So I want to get back to that place. But for right now, I will just say thank you. Stay engaged with me.
Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight's telephone town hall with Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. If you haven't spoken to a member of our staff yet about subscribing to the e-newsletter, please stay on the line. At the sound of the tone, simply spell out your name and email address slowly. We thank you, and we wish you a blessed evening. Good night, everyone.
Robin.